devotion. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. Rising up, 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 up. We're rising up, 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 up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't resist us. This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us.
And welcome everyone to a new year and a new episode of Straight Talk with Joe Villano. I feel like I haven't been here forever. I feel like it's been way too long. So we've been gone for what, 2 weeks with the way the holidays fell in. But I hope everyone had an absolutely Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and I hope you are all having an absolutely tremendous new year. I know this new year has been very exciting for myself. Like I said, I think I told you guys maybe a couple weeks ago before we went, I was going to start, my New Year's resolution was to do my number one bucket list. And the number one thing on my bucket list is learning how to fly. And we are blessed here in the city of Meriden with one of the greatest airports around. It truly is awesome. I am on my third flight. I did my third flight today. I did my first takeoff and I did my first landing today over at Markham Airport. So I am going for my pilot's license, which again is number one on my bucket list of things to do because I absolutely love aviation and it has been everything I hoped for and then some. Lisa, congratulations on a new job. Hope you're starting that tomorrow. That's awesome. Hopefully everyone's going to have a great new year. You know, again, life is short. If we learned anything over the last couple of years is that life is short. And take advantage of it while you have it. Because you never know how much time you have left. So I'm taking advantage of that this year. And I am extremely excited about it. So, and I am having an absolute ball today. Of course, today, I did almost get sick today. My instructor does not go easy on me. She is very good at what she does. And we were doing maneuvers today. And we were doing 65 bank turns. And if you do a 360 on that, 2 or 3 times, even the strongest who have the strongest stomachs start to shake a little bit. So that is what I am doing. I want to know what your guys' New Year's resolutions are. But of course, let's get the formalities out of the way. I am Joe Villani. I'm your host, your guiding light through the mayhem, through the chaos, or the perceived chaos. Because some people are looking at what happened in Congress over the last week as chaos. And I tell you what, it is not. And I know the media wants it to present it as Republicans are in disarray and that there's listen, there's one thing that comes down to it. And if you follow politics, you would understand Kevin McCarthy is not a conservative. So if you're a conservative in Congress, you have a hard time voting for Kevin McCarthy. And this isn't something new. It's been like that for a long time with him. So we're going to go over what most people believe is chaos and hostage taking by 20 Republicans. And I'm going to tell you what they did for America. And we'll go over that in a second. But of course, this show always works best when you are involved. So if you want to call in, 203-679-9610. And of course, our email, straighttalkjv@gmail.com. I appreciate all the well wishes over the last couple of weeks. We have a lot in our email. When we have time over the next couple of weeks, we'll actually go through those. And of course, if you're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and all those in between, you can always jump in on the message board where I see it is up and running. So let's talk about obviously the number one thing that most people are concerned about. That's Kevin McCarthy. He is now Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. And it took 15 votes. Now, I don't usually stay up late, but I happened to be at the casino and I was playing poker. And of course it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I was still there. And about 1:30, they finally had the vote that he finally had the votes to get him over the top. And again, most people think it's just because of Kevin McCarthy. They just didn't want him, but they had real issues with a lot of things he's done in the past. Yes, actually did win, which was why I was still at the table at 1:30 in the morning. I was having a very good night. Of course, I only play poker. I don't gamble in table games and slot. I've never played a slot machine in my life, which I'm very proud of because I refuse to put any money inside a machine. But as most people call it, again, if you listen to the mainstream media, you listen to some rhino Republicans, you will sit there and say, "Oh, these conservative Republicans did a far right, far extreme, and they were holding everyone hostage." No, they were just simply taking McCarthy's track record over the past 10, 15 years and saying, "Wait a minute, I can't in good conscience vote for you because that's not what my constituents want." And there are certain demands that they wanted. And these are huge. These are huge, not for Congress, but these are huge for the American people. And that's what really matters. I think that's what most people don't understand, is that what they got was not for them. And in most members of Congress, they don't want to do any of this stuff because they want to go business as usual. And these 20 Republicans who stood up and said, "No, wait a minute, we're here to make a difference and to change things in this city. And we can't do that by doing the same old crap." And let's take, for instance, this takes away the agreement that was made, takes away the proxy voting rule. And the proxy voting by proxy allows members of Congress to vote from wherever they are, virtually or by a proxy. And that was never allowed. It was never allowed. Now, I understand that they did it for 2 years while COVID's over. But a lot of Democrats and some Republicans wanted that because they didn't want to be in town. They didn't want to be in town to do their job. So I consider them patriots. The Freedom Caucus, I consider them patriots because I think they have the best interests at heart of the American people. Now, you've heard me say it many a times on this show. I don't trust Washington politicians, whether Democrat or Republican, because 90% of them, 95%, I would say, are not for the American people. They're for the special interests. That is a fact. And they have proven that with their votes. So without these 20, you would never have had this. They would have been doing it from wherever they are, anytime they want, for an extended period of time. Now, I think Sean just alluded to it. Without these 20 members, you would not have a vote for term limits. And I think that's very important. The fact that everyone will now be on record on either side of term limits for the members of Congress. To me, that's the most vital one. Because this swamp is only created because you have a lot of members who have 20, 30, 40, 50 years in. That's not what the founding fathers wanted. They wanted you to come, serve your time, do on behalf of your constituents, and then go back home. And go back home. They didn't want you making a career out of it and then pass it down to your family members. I remember when Scott Brown, when Ted Kennedy passed away, when Senator Kennedy passed away, and they were asked, and Scott Brown, who was the Republican running in that election, they asked Scott Brown, well, do you think you're worthy of Ted Kennedy's seat? And Scott Brown immediately corrected him and said, that's not Ted Kennedy's seat. That's the American people's seat. That's Massachusetts' seat. It's not a person. That's how these members of Congress think. They think it's theirs, and they have a right to it, and they are entitled to it. We think this younger generations are a bunch of entitlement people. You've never met a Washington politician. Go spend a week down in Washington watching what they do, and you will come back with a different perspective. They think they're entitled to these things, which is why they could pass laws and not make themselves privy to it, which again is something else that is now ending thanks to these 20 Republicans. Every bill that is passed, they are going to be held to it. They can't carve themselves out with an exception. And they've done it with a lot of the major bills, including Obamacare. It was good enough for everybody else, but not for them. They're going to keep their Cadillac plans. This is what these 20 members did for the American people. This is one of my favorites. Kevin McCarthy has now promised to give House members 72 hours to review bills before they come to the floor, so that members of Congress can actually read them and understand what they're voting on. Wow. You know, the old saying from previous Speaker Pelosi, oh, well, we got to vote for it before we can find out what's in it. The most asinine quote of all time. But that's how a lot of things are done down in Washington. A lot of things are done. It's absolute craziness. But that ends now. That ends thanks to these 20 Republicans. And now this one, again, some people are making a big deal out of this one, and it really doesn't make a difference. The McCarthy agreed to lower the GOP conference members needed to start the process of removing the speaker, or known as a motion to vacate, to 1 instead of 5. I mean, that doesn't really make a difference. If you have 1, you're going to have 5. So, and that's usually how it goes. If there's that much discontent, you're going to have more than 1. And the Freedom Caucus already showed you have 20 right off the bat. So if they decide to come after you because you're not keeping your promises, well, then it's not going to be just one. So I think that one doesn't even really make a difference. This is one that now most people don't realize that this next one used to exist, and then it was taken away. McCarthy has agreed to recreate the subcommittee on weaponization of federal government, which is a task force that probes the federal government's information collection on private individuals as well as ongoing criminal investigations. Now, this used to happen before. This used to happen after Watergate, and then it was stripped away. And now, listen, if anyone doesn't think that, and again, it's already been proven with the whole Trump thing back in 2016, that the U.S. government was illegally surveying American citizens. Carter Page is the prime example of that. And they were doing illegal activities to try to get them to admit that they were doing wrongdoings when they weren't. And then they made up lies. The federal government made up lies. And again, this is all proven. They doctored FBI subpoenas and statements to the court system saying that they had evidence when they knew it was circumstantial and it wasn't verified to get warrants to spy on Americans. These things were happening. And now the committee is going to be back to be able to make sure that that does not happen again. And if it is happening, to make sure that they go ahead and take care of it. Now, as far as your pocketbook is concerned, the next one is most important. So now now it's going to be required to have a standalone vote for large spending bills. And what does this do? This prevents members from inserting unpopular and large, expensive pet projects into bills like say a spending bill, or let's just say it's a vet supporting our vets, or something like that. A bill that is going to pass and nobody would vote against. So what normally happens is everybody throws their amendments in. Everybody throws their amendments in these bills because they know no one's going to vote against them. Nobody's going to read the bill because the 72 hours wasn't there before. So they just throw all these pork projects into these bills. And that's how you get a bill that's 800, 900,000 pages long. That ends thanks to these 20 brave Republicans who weren't afraid to turn around and say, no, it's time to change the way Washington works. It's time to stop the swamp. And I say kudos and thank you to those 20 Republicans. Thank you to those 20 Republicans that stood tall and said, if you want our vote, you have to sit there and do this, this, and this. And it worked. It took 3 days and 15 rounds of voting, but it worked. It's either that or Kevin McCarthy was going to have to turn around and say, I guess I'm not going to be speaker. And we all knew that wasn't going to happen. He's waited too long to get that chair. And nothing was going to stop him. And he had to make concessions. And that's another big one. So now the Freedom Caucus is going to have 3 seats on the Rules Committee. Now, most people don't even realize what the Rules Committee is. So what the Rules Committee does is every time a bill is passed and brought over, it goes to the Rules Committee. And that's where the rules of the debate are set up. And that is a very, very powerful, if not the most powerful, committee in Congress. And now the Freedom Caucus will have 3 seats on it. And this allows them to make sure that Kevin McCarthy sticks to his word and the rules are followed as they put out, as is it with what's here. It's a safe fall. It's a safety outlet in case he doesn't keep his word. No one said democracy was easy and wasn't messy. And again, while some people call it chaotic, unproductive, I think this is probably the greatest thing that's happened in a long time for America. All those things we just talked about are great things, not for Congress, but for the American people. And now we're going to find out how honest Kevin McCarthy is. And we're going to see if he sticks to his words. Now, again, for me, I'm a big Jim Jordan fan. I wish Jim Jordan was going to be speaker, but he didn't want it. Even though he was nominated a couple times by the Freedom Caucus. But that's where we're at now. So now we have a speaker, everybody's sworn in, and now the people's work can begin. And we'll keep an eye on it. I know we had here in our Connecticut, we had our members of the House and Senate sworn in. Obviously, the governor was sworn in. We saw all the pictures of everybody partying. So I know the inaugural ball, I heard, was a good time. If you're a Democrat, of course, you went. So not many Republicans there. So, but we'll see where it goes for the next couple of weeks, and we'll see which direction they're going in. So, of course, on the other news, the big news that's going on today is that Joe Biden finally realized where the border was. He finally made his way to the border. Now, of course, it's a sanitized environment down there where they knew he was coming almost a week in advance. So, of course, they cleared out all the tent cities. They cleared out all the illegal immigrants. And they kept him shielded from what was really going on. So basically, he went down there for his photo op. Now, again, if you're a Republican, you can't sit there and complain that he went down there for a photo op. Because everybody knew if he went down there, it was going to be for a photo op. Because he does not want to do anything with the border. He doesn't even think the border is an issue. But we can't sit here. You can't sit there as a Republican and then sit there and bash him. Oh, you're only down here for a photo op. Of course he's there for a photo op. He's there to shut you up. That's why I never got the point of why, people going, oh, well, he's never been to the border. He doesn't need to go to the border to know what's happening. He can watch it on TV. But, of course, they cleaned it up. He went down there. He got his photo op. Now, again, good for friggin' Texas Governor Abbott. He took full advantage of Biden being down there, and he handed him a nice scathing letter. And normally, you always see them always kissing ass with each other every time they show up. Abbott's like, listen, I'm glad you're here. Here, take this, because I know you're not going to get a true indication of what's going on down here. He's not going to be taking, he's not going to take a flyover to go look at all the illegals going and over the Rio Grande. He's not going to go see all that. He's going to go there, snap some pictures with some officials. He's going to sit there and meet with the Border Patrol. Oh my God, I care about what's going on. And then he's going to turn around and jump on Air Force One and he's going to go back home. And then he's going to sit there and say, oh, I went to the border. It's not too bad. I talked to them. I'm with them. I understand them. I'm going to bring help to you. Yeah, kind of like you brought help to New York or Detroit or Chicago or Florida or Texas. I love the fact that Colorado, of all places, in case no one saw it, I know we all talk about we talked about the buses last month. We talked about the buses. Now the buses that were coming from Texas and the airplanes that were coming from Florida. Colorado sending buses to New York and to Chicago. Colorado is run by a Democrat. And Colorado is sending busloads of illegal immigrants to New York and Chicago. And both mayors sent them a letter saying, oh my God, stop what you're doing. We're getting enough crap from the Republican governors. Now the Democrat governor is going to screw us too. And I want to show you the quote from the mayor of New York, because I thought it was quite interesting. Other than the fact that he said one time we had to deal with Republican government, now we're dealing with Democrats, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And his next quote was, what's callous is how we have been ignored as a city, and now I have to make tough decisions on resources of New York. It is time the federal government to step up. Well, no crap. You're worried about your city. You got states under siege from Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Florida. You have those states that are under siege with millions of illegal immigrants, and you're talking about 10 to 20,000. They're talking about millions down at the southern border. And the federal government hasn't blinked an eye to their plight. And they're saying, screw you. What do you think the federal government's going to say to you? Welcome to being a Republican state. But you're a sanctuary city. That was a decision that New Yorkers made. That is a decision Chicago residents made to be a sanctuary city. We didn't do that. Now the chickens are coming home to roost, and you're going to sit there and cry about it. Why don't you reverse that decision to be a sanctuary city? Maybe that'd be the first step forward into waking people up to what's going on in the New York City or in Chicago. I don't know why any illegal immigrant want to go to Chicago. You got a better chance of getting shot there than anywhere. But I love how now they're going to sit there and say, oh, the federal government needs to step up. We're dealing with 10 to 20,000. When again, the southern states have been dealing with millions coming through over the last year. And again, kudos to Governor Abbott. Because he had no problems handing over that letter and saying, you're doing a horrible job, and at least here's steps you need to do to correct it, and you can correct it. But again, we'll have to see how this year plays out with that. Because although Title 42 was kept on the books for now, it's going to eventually go away. And that's something that cannot happen. But we'll see. Maryland is a sanctuary city. Yeah, I believe we are, actually. I don't think we're officially a sanctuary city, though. I know New Haven is. I don't know if Meriden is technically a sanctuary city. I don't think it was ever voted on. But I could be wrong. So, everyone knows my favorite punching bag around here is the RJ. And the RJ, and I love it, because the RJ was just sitting there, maybe a month and a half ago, praising how great they are and how many awards they win, because, people love them. Obviously not, because their viewership is down. Their subscriptions are in the tank. No, we are not. Thank you, Bill. Bob. I didn't think we were. I didn't think we were a sanctuary city. I know many of them wanted it. I think like Castro wanted it. I know there was a big push back then, but I didn't think it was ever voted on. I know the church we had the issue with the one gentleman that was overstayed his visa that stood up there, that was put up there on Paddock Avenue for a month and a half or so. But he eventually, I don't know what of it. Yeah, I think Senator Blumenthal finally got something for him. But I look at the Record Journal and I look at what they're doing now, and they're basically on life support. And listen, I have no sympathy for them because it's a shit publication in my eyes. Obviously, we all know it's just nothing more but a Democrat paper and publication, and it will never change. So I have no issues watching them die a slow death over here over the next 5 years. This move to take away the carriers now and sit there and say, "Oh, it's not reliable, or that we just don't have enough people." That's nonsense. We all know that's nonsense. But so they're going to move it over to the mail service, and the mail service will now deliver your papers on a daily basis. Now, again, if you read the paper in the morning, it kind of does you no use, especially if yours doesn't come to the afternoon like mine does. And I don't get my mail until 1:30, or even 2 o'clock sometimes. So to me, I just use digital. Listen, I have to sit there and subscribe to them just because I need to be kept up to date on everything that's going on, and hearing their nonsense and read their nonsense on their opinion pages, so we know what we're up against. Because listen, if I want to know what we're up against, I just go to the op-ed page on the Record Journal, and it's nothing but Democrat talking points and nonsense anyways. So, and I love to read it because I always need a good laugh. But again, they're moving away from, so there's going to be no more Sunday edition, no more Monday edition. So now the Sunday edition is going to be put in with Saturday, and the Monday edition is going to be put in with Tuesday. So they're delivering you less product. Of course, they're not changing their subscription prices. You're still going to pay the same. They're just not going to do it. They're just going to, now, first of all, it's not a very big paper as it is now. It's maybe 10 pages as it is now? So what, are they going to add it to 12 pages? To me, I don't get doing a combined issue because, it's old news. It's not news anymore. And I think what the Record Journal is going to find out is that as they move to this, they're going to notice that most people are just going to watch TV or get it on Facebook even more. And I think most people are going to go to the online side because no one's going to want to wait until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and maybe even longer to get their paper. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think most people will get their news from a different source now. And I think this move by the Record Journal is going to hurt them in the long run. I don't even think in the long run. I think in the very short run, I think they're going to see subscriptions go down. They'll be lucky if people get the digital side. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Like I said, I have no lost love for the Record Journal. Now, again, with that said, I do like Mike Gagney. I think Mike Gagney does do a terrific job at being objective in his reporting. I don't think I honestly can't tell you which side he goes, so which way he leans. Where if we're talking about Mary Ellen or someone like that, I can tell you it's a left leaning. When I hear Mary Ellen's calling me, I know whatever I say, I need to put in writing because it probably won't get depicted the way I said it. So that's why with certain people I will talk with on the phone, and certain people I will talk only through email. And that, again, is the trust you build as a reporter with certain people. If it's Mike Gagney, I will talk with him on the phone. I will have no problem saying whatever I want because I know he's going to, and he has done it. He has put down word for word what I say. So where with Mary Ellen, I can say something and the next thing you know, I read it. I'm like, who the hell said that? I didn't say that. Or she'll cut and pay, or she'll cut part of it, what I had to say. So, again, I'm going to have no lost love as I watch the RJ finally fall into the abyss and within the next 3 to 5 years be out of business. That's what I predict seeing. Now, most people will sit there and say, yes, Mike is very good. I think, and then you're going to have most people sit there and say, oh my God, we need to be kept into news. I got an idea. For all those people that are going to turn around and say, well, we need to be kept up in the loop. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? I got an idea. Show up. Show up. Go to meetings. Do your research. The RJ is not the only way to sit there and get your information. This is why most people are so uninformed and so brainwashed into thinking that Democrats are doing somewhat of a good job around here. We look at every city around us, every town around us, doing a tremendous job, seeing business growth. And we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs with our thumb up our ass half the time. And we're not seeing any growth. It's absolute craziness. And then we're going to sit there and talk about dumping millions and more into a failed downtown. Which I've already given my perception of that, my review of that many times over the last couple of years. Downtown is a lost cause until you sit there and now build on the outskirts and work our way in. I think Joe Fest has been dealt a tough hand in trying to get anything done downtown. Now, again, I am for trying certain things if it's not going to cost the taxpayers money. And I think we talked about this again with the whole shared space with the workspace down at 24 Colony. I have no problem with the city of Meriden spending money to renovate 24 Colony and putting shared workspace in there. It's worked in other towns, in other cities. It's been very good. And I'm interested to see how that plays out. If nothing else, it increases the value of that area, of that space, which then creates more tax revenue for the city. And it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. Again, which is why I'm for it. And I'm willing to watch this thing take a shot at rebuilding, bring some kind of life to downtown. Same thing with across the street. If we could get the ones with the auction that just happened on those two units on Colony Street, where they want to renovate them to be market rate. That's what you're going to need. And I like having a little coffee shop on the bottom and having a gym over there. These are good things. And if it doesn't cost the taxpayers money, guys, we need to get fully behind it. I know we have some in the audience here that is totally against housing and any kind of housing coming into the city. And to me, that's mind-boggling to me. So, if MHA did not own, they don't own a 24 Colony. That's Penrose that owns 24 Colony. So I look forward to things like that happening. And I think we as a community need to get behind those 100% to try to make those successful. It's okay to bitch and complain about things, but we also have a responsibility to, one, support good ideas and admit to good ideas. Listen, they don't have to be ours. They don't have to be ours. I have no problem telling the Democrat they did a good job when they did a good job. And politics shouldn't be part of it. So this is where if both sides could get together and get their heads out of their asses, that we can make some good progress here. And I think there's a lot of things to look forward to in 2023. Some things that are going to be popular, some things that aren't. I think Tremont Street, I think it's going to be very popular. It's going to be a very good thing for the city, and not just for the city, but for that neighborhood. I don't like the fact they tweaked their plans a little bit, and it takes away a little bit more parking over there. I don't think that's a good idea. But I think for the neighborhood for itself, I think it's going to increase the overall property values of the thing around it. Because you don't have just a 30-quarter empty building over there anymore. It's going to be a nice building. And with more people, hopefully there's going to be less crime over there. Hopefully there's going to be less break-ins because there's going to be more people around. But we'll wait to find out. But again, that's one thing I'm really excited about. I'm excited about Pratt Street and that unit they want to build across from that old warehouse or next to Miller. I'm excited about that because that's market rate. We're getting people in here with disposable income. That's the whole plan. Now, if they start trying to push those over to affordable housing, well, we're going to have some serious issues. But again, those are things that I'm excited about. Again, I never went down to the airport before. Ames. That's if Ames even comes. I know they're looking at the old Lowe's, at the current Lowe's outlet spot. Who knows? I'll wait for more information on that. I just don't see that happening, but we'll see. Here's the hoping, I guess. But like I said, I wasn't too familiar with the airport until just recently. I never had a reason to go down there. And I look at all the activity that goes on over there. And you know what? The one thing most people tell me when I visit the airport and I talk to the people that own planes or the training school, they all say the same thing. We need more hangars. I think we should be building more hangars over there. I know a lot of people were irritated about building new hangars when it first got proposed, I think like 3 years ago. And I said, wait a minute, what are you complaining about? They're already rented. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you firsthand, there are a lot of people that have planes over there that would absolutely love a hangar. And the city can make a good amount of money. They're not that expensive to build. They're basically just a metal box. And they're charging, almost $1,000, if not more, over there for a hangar. That's some good money. They got a new runway over there. It's great. It's a great spot. And I think it has a lot of potential. A lot of potential. And it is a little windy over there for my liking, which I found really does hinder landing over there. It is quite tough. They got a hell of a crosswind that comes over there, down off the mountain there. And most people think, the mountain where Castle Craig and stuff is wouldn't really affect over there. But why would the city get out of there? This is where I'll have to disagree with you, Dan. The airport makes money. And there wouldn't be more tax revenue doing a private enterprise for all those buildings. At all. At all. I think the airport's a better investment than probably half the other things we do. But they make money. Therefore, it's tax revenue. It's not cheap. It's not cheap to keep airplanes there. It's not cheap. You go to any airport, go to an airport authority meeting. You can see their books. They're an enterprise fund. You can see their books. You can see the golf courses books. You can see the sewer and water books. You can see any of those. We need to invest in things that make us money. But you got, again, and always say, watch that word investment, because whenever they say investment, it means spend money. But I don't mind spending money if it's making us money. So Daffodil is not a city, technically, is not a city event. That's a nonprofit, which is why we should be skeptical of the Daffodil Festival, because we can't see their books. And that's something we should see their books, especially if we're given $30,000 a year to help make that go off. So now we're talking oranges and apples. But I didn't mean to get off onto the airports, because again, the airport's my. But again, I'm gonna probably enjoy watching the Record Journal bleed a slow death, and I give it 3 to 5 years, and we'll see what happens. But I think they're gonna see. I think they're gonna see the effects of it right away when they take away. This is when they take away those days, and they take away mail care. They have the mail delivering it. I think they're going to see an immediate decrease in activity. Now, if most people did not see this, of course, if you have children in Wilcox, I think this next story is something we did talk about this, about a lawsuit that 2 families filed against Wilcox for lack of teachers. And it started, I think they filed the lawsuit about a month and a half ago because their child did not have a permanent math teacher. Now, this happens a lot in private schools where you don't have a certified teacher, because a certified teacher is technically, surprisingly, not required in a private school. But I would think in a state school it would be, which is shocking to me. So a lawsuit was filed a month and a half ago by a couple of families that had a child at Wilcox, because she was a straight A student and she wasn't getting the education as she deserved with math, because the math teacher quit, went somewhere else, and they just couldn't find another math teacher. So they had a substitute teacher who wasn't certified teaching the class, and she wasn't getting what she needed out of it. So they went to the leadership of Wilcox, and they kept trying to put pressure on them to find someone, and it just never happened. Well, apparently, school was closed last Friday because of staffing issues. And I know this came up during the campaign about the lack of teachers. And I said, it's not because of pay. Teachers are making some good money for working 8 to 9 months out of the year, making 80 grand a year and higher. They're not hurting. And then most of them do summer work and make a supplemental income. So, and if we look at if we have time, we'll get to it. The Board of Ed just increased their budget for next year to $107 million, $4.8 million more, with almost $3 million of that going to teacher salaries and benefits. So again, it's not that teachers don't want to work or there's not enough teachers. It's just look where they're going and look where they're not going. It's not because of the pay. It's because they look at what they're dealing with on a daily basis. Hell, you just had a 6-year-old in Virginia shoot his teacher. Did anyone hear about that? In Virginia, a 6-year-old shot the teacher after an altercation. Now, I can begin in a million different places with that. That's a 6-year-old. These are high schoolers. The most disrespectful group of people I have ever met in my life. And honestly, I see half of them and I listen to half of them. I swear to God, I want to smack them in the mouth. Teachers don't want to deal with that. You think teachers are going to the inner cities to deal with that? No. They don't want to be disrespected. They'll go to Greenwich. They'll go to Berlin. They'll go to Cheshire, where the kids have some respect. You know, I said this again a couple months ago when people sit there and complain. Well, there's nothing for the kids to do in this city. You tell me where these kids deserve something. Because when things do open, they fight. There's shootings. There's stabbings. Who in their right mind would open something in the city of Meriden for the teenagers? Hell, half the juveniles now are stealing cars. They know there's no consequences. Hell, what a 14 and 15-year-old were just picked up in Trumbull in a stolen car. Both of them with friggin' ankle bracelets on. One of them, again, this is what blows my freaking mind. The 14-year-old had an active warrant. How is that possible? How can you have an active warrant and not be picked up when you have a freaking ankle bracelet on? Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in such a fucked up world. We really are. And it's this woke nonsense and this BS that is just sucking in its life out of everything in this freaking society. That's good. There's no consequences to your actions anymore. You're always a victim. This victim mentality has created these problems. And where are their parents? That's a great question. Because that kind of shit should not happen. I remember when I went to school, God forbid my teacher ever called the house. God forbid the teacher ever said, Joe did this, Joe did that. That wasn't good. It'd be my ass. Whether it was right or wrong, whether it was true or not, it'd be my ass. Today, everyone's child's an angel. Perfect. Participation trophies. Every child is special. No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm sorry to hear. I'm sorry to say that to you. But these entitlement kids have created the environment we have in these schools. The lack of discipline from parents have created the lack of respect in schools. And teachers aren't going to deal with it. They're not being paid that much to deal with it when they could go to different towns and cities. And that's what's happening. Again, the city of Meriden is no better. They play the numbers game. That's what every city does. They play the numbers game. We can't have kids going down to the office because we have to report that to the state. Fine. We'll hire some climate specialists. When there's an issue with a student, we'll call them. They'll come talk to them, take them for a walk, put them back in class. We don't have to count it. It's all one big number game so they can make more money. So they can justify more money. When you're not fixing the problem. You want to talk about why the kids aren't getting educated? Because you got too many disruptions in the classrooms. And it's from children that have no respect for authority, or for their elders. And that is just the straight truth that most people don't want to hear about. Now, I'm not going to sit here and start going through all the scenarios on why this stuff is happening. But we know the main reason is because there's no discipline at home. I'm telling you, my kid's not the perfect kid. But God help him if a teacher calls my house sitting there saying Joseph did X, Y, and Z. Especially if he was showing disrespect to one of his teachers. I don't care who it is. This is the society we live in, where there's no consequences to anything, so these kids run wild. And that's why you have kids shooting each other in the streets. That's why you have drive-bys. That's why you have stolen cars. Hell, my neighborhood last night was just hit. Erin forgot to lock her truck. Erin forgot to lock her truck. Guess what happened? They ran and rummaged right through it. And it happens all the time. This is what we're dealing with. It's not what we grew up with. But what we can't do also is be silenced by it. We can't be silenced by it. We have to sit there and call it out. I know most people don't want to go and do that for many reasons. Because it's the inner city where it happens the most. Nobody wants to be called anything. But we're doing this society no favors. We're doing the children no favors by not calling it out and not trying to fix it. It's not too late. It's not too late to fix it. But most people won't even acknowledge the problem exists. And the real problem is, most of those people are leaders in our city who don't think we have a problem. And that makes it even worse. Because when you have leadership saying, we don't have these problems, or they're victims of this, and that, they're emboldening these kids to keep on going. Oh, Bob, oh my God. Oh, did you really just say that? Bob, I think I love you even more, buddy. So in case you're on a different platform, Bob just said, now this is, again, Councilman Williams, parents should have the option to get vouchers from their public school system and decide where they want their children to attend. Friggin' school choice. I absolutely love school choice. Listen, Joseph did not go to middle school in Meriden. He went to ACES. He went to a magnet school. Again, and the city has to pick up part of that tab. I am all for that. I am all for school choice in education. I think you would literally eliminate a lot of issues. And I think parents would get more involved. I honestly think parents would get more involved in their children's education. I know that sounds a little weird. But if they know they have a choice, now it empowers them to sit there and do their research and to pick a school and visit the school and be involved in the school. But Bob, me and you both know that's never going to happen. Not in Meriden. Not with the current leadership in Meriden. So, but that's why I look for it. Listen, I know, and probably some people are going to disagree with me on this. That's why I am for this year starting the process for real change in the city of Meriden. And that's why, again, I'm going to be pushing hard this year for charter reform. Listen, the state mandate is never going to happen because the state, again, wants to dictate everything. So the state's never going to do it. And we definitely don't have a delegation here in Meriden that's ever going to sit there and do something like that. So I think if anything, it's going to have to start within the city to do a school choice. And to me, I think it'd be somewhat cheaper. If you get enough kids to participate in it, I think it'd be much cheaper. So, but again, I know that's not going to happen. But here again, wishful thinking. But what I think can happen in the city of Meriden this year is, I think, and again, we'll talk about more towards May, charter reform. So, listen, the council, you're gonna have some that are for it, but listen, there's Republicans that aren't for charter reform, which blows my mind. So there's council members now, currently on the city council now, Republicans that are not for charter reform, because they say, well, you could hurt us more than help us. Listen, we're getting fucking killed now. So I don't know what you're talking about. The last time charter reform was done was back in the 70s, and they were all Democrats. At least we have 4 Republicans now. But if you could get a decent mayor in November who appoints the charter committee, I think anything's possible. And I definitely think charter reform needs to happen this year. And there's 2 ways of going about charter reform in the state of Connecticut. One, you could have 2/3 of the council support opening the charter, and they could vote on it. And therefore, that will have, then what happens is the mayor will appoint a charter revision task force, and they will review it, and they will sit there and do all the legwork to it. Then it would go back to the city council. It would have to be voted on again. And then it would go to the people, and it would go to a referendum, which if we started in June, we could have it on November's, on the November ballot, which I think would be ideal, cost-wise and logistically. It all lines up. If you started in June, because again, there's time frames here, and you got to be careful for the time frames. So you have 90 days to get all the signatures, and then you have a certain amount of time to get everything put into action. So if we started in, let's say, March, May, June, July, if we get the signatures, now that the mayor can start the committee, that should be July, August, September. It goes to the city council. They pass it. It will be voted on within 60 days, which will be November. So that's the timeline. Now, of course, you can see there, see that I put some thought into this. So that would be the timeline. And I think right now is the opportune time to do it. We would have 90 days, and I forget exactly how many people we need to get. I think it's 20%. 10 or 20%. I'd have to double check it. But I think if nothing else comes out of 2023, it needs to be that. And then, again, I'm interested to see who the candidates are going to be for city council. But again, now everyone knows that I've always said for years, worry about the council, not the mayor. Well, if we're doing charter reform this year, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to say, you know what? If we could get the charter reform done, forget about the city council, worry about the mayor position. And then we need someone to go take out Kevin. Because Kevin Scarpati has already proven already he is no unaffiliated. He is not unaffiliated at all. At all. I think if you look at his history now over the last year and a half, I don't think he's hung out with a single Republican. He hasn't taken a picture with a single Republican. I see he's at Lamont's ball. I see he's down in Washington with Blumenthal. He is in no way an unaffiliated. He might as well just be a Democrat. Just be honest with the people and sit there and say, you know what? I kiss Democrat ass so that I could get invited to parties. See, and again, that's the part that really blows my mind. I hate opportunists. I hate people who sit there and say, oh, I'm unaffiliated, but, and I only have to do the Democrat thing because I need their votes because, you can't get elected without one. But yeah, you're hanging out with them everywhere. You're agreeing with them on everything. You're supporting them. You're endorsing them. And then you're going to sit there and try to tell me, you're an unaffiliated? No, you're part of the problem. And nobody ever wants to point these things out. Nobody wants to point them out. I'll point them out. You tell me the last Republican that Kevin Scarpati endorsed. You tell me the last Republican candidate fundraiser that he went to. You're not going to find one. I could show you at least 8 Democrat ones. So that illusion that Kevin is some kind of unaffiliated is an absolute farce. And he needs to be defeated in November. And Republicans need to put someone up strong that will go up against them. But we'll talk more about that stuff in the next month or so. Because I think if you're going to have, again, and I always say Republicans need to work 10 times harder than any Democrat in this city to get elected. Especially if you're new. And I'm interested to see who each side puts up. I know a lot of people aren't coming back. So you're going to have some open seats this year, which is going to be very interesting to see what each side puts up. So, but we'll talk more about that next week. But guys, it is absolutely wonderful to be back. I thank you guys all for your well wishes. I got everyone's Christmas cards and I got the emails, and I absolutely thank you for them all. And I look forward to a very good 2023. So you're going to say you're a Democrat and vote Republican? Dolphins are in the playoffs. Yes. Congratulations to my Dolphins. It was an absolute ugly game today. An absolutely ugly game. The Dolphins played the Jets today. Dolphins needed to win, and New England needed to lose against Buffalo, which they did. So I am looking forward to it. Keep in mind, Ray, thank you for saying that, for reminding me. We might have a show next Saturday. If Miami is playing on Sunday against Buffalo, we might have a show on Saturday instead, because I will be heading to Buffalo for that game. So I am working on tickets now, but they haven't set a time yet for that game. So if they are playing on Sunday, we probably will have a show on Saturday night. But I will keep you guys up to date on that. Just keep tracking the website, and you should get the updates on it. But until then, go Dolphins. And I don't know. I really wasn't even going to talk about it. But if anyone didn't see the whole Buffalo Bills versus Cincinnati Bengals game, well, the whole 10 minutes that were on it. Listen, if you don't understand what a violent game that is, I think everyone was sobered to that fact last week. And I tell you, that was heart-wrenching to watch. And, of course, my prayers and best go out to Hamlin. And I see he's making a great recovery, which is great. So, but just, again, I hope people have a certain respect for the game and that it is a dangerous game. And these guys go out there and give it their all every single week. So best wishes to him. Congratulations to Buffalo. They got the 2 seed. So Miami will go up to Buffalo next week and take them out. I think because if you're a Miami fan, you know how the season went. You know, we lose 5, we win 3, we lose 4, we win 5, and now we lose 5, and now we're up. So we don't lose right off the bat. So I think we got 5-game winning streak at least going here. So I see Miami going to the Super Bowl, and then I look forward to going to Arizona to the Super Bowl. So that's the hope and dream for 2023 as far as football is concerned. But I'll keep you guys up to date on the next show. We'll say tentatively now. We'll sit there and say we'll probably be here next Sunday. But if that changes, it'll be on the website and on the Facebook. So until then, guys, absolutely have a terrific start of the new year. I love each and every one of you. And we will be back with you again next week. And I look forward to it. Guys, until then, God bless you. And, of course, as always, God bless this great country we live in. Kudos to the 20 Republicans that made it just a little bit better this week. So I love you guys. I will talk to you all next week. Kudos.
And a million faces formed together, made for elevation. I'm a soldier, won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic, static. Call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't